Hey, what is up, grappling fans? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rafa Esparza, coming to you live right now. It is 4:40 Best Coast time. I'm super excited you're here. I know it's been a little bit of a while, especially considering there was no live event this weekend, so I totally understand if you missed us. I missed you too. But instead of doing a fight companion, I thought I'd bring on a guest. We're going to get to her in just a second here. But before we do, a couple quick reminders. One, if you give some love to our friends over at X Marshall, they're formerly known as NoGiBJJgear.com. Go over, see what you like in there. They've got some great stuff. A lot of it's kind of nonsense, but the good nonsense. The stuff that you might buy when you're maybe a little drunk, or maybe, you made some errors with your Christmas shopping. Why not redeem them by going over to NoGiBJJgear.com, which is now xmarshall.com. And if you use the promo code GrapplingHour15, you get 15% off of whatever you put in your cart. Additionally, go over to our friends over at Manscaped, use the promo code VerbalTap, you'll get 20% off. See, we keep going up higher and higher every one of these that we do. And of course, our friends over at Dodgy Collective. All right, let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. So we do these fight companions, and we're always enjoying the madness that we see in front of us. And the madness that we saw at the all-female event, aside from the fact that it was done in literally like an hour's worth of time. I don't even know if the females themselves went that far over. If anything, the men were the ones that were dragging that event on into overtimes because the ladies were getting it done. They know what it's like to put on a great event. And I was so impressed with our guest today. Of course she won. But I want to talk about how she won. And I feel like what she was doing on that stage was she was cultivating an impressive display of her jiu-jitsu talents. She has been very, 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 very good on the multiple grappling scenes. But we're so stoked to talk with her today. We're going to get her out of her Canadian polite shell and get her to really just embrace how good she is by the end of this. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show for the very first time, Brianna Ste-Marie. Brianna, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to talk to you guys.
Well, we are excited to have you here. It is a pleasure. First and foremost, congratulations. I could not be more excited to talk to you after the performance that you put in over at Combat Jiu-Jitsu. How did it feel to win that event?
It was pretty incredible. Honestly, it was like the first kind of like truly professional event I've done. I don't know, it just felt like I did like a camp for it. I like really prepared for it. I treated like I wanted to walk in there like a professional athlete, and I feel like I did. And then to have like the camp come together and to feel and just perform like as good as I know I can, everything just felt great. Yeah.
I want to go back for just a split second. I want to know how you got involved with this particular event, because I know that when you get the email, a lot of people kind of recount, or you get that initial contact that's kind of like, oh, it's sometimes overwhelming. Was this something that you were pursuing? If you can, just kind of describe what it was and how it happened.
So it's actually a kind of a funny story. I saw like the promo for the event. I don't remember through what. I must have been following like Eddie Bravo or maybe like the EBI page. I'm not sure. But I saw the promotion for the event and I was like, oh, fuck it. I could do this. Like 125, like I can cut to that weight. And right now with like the pandemic, so many events had been like canceled, or they're like really hard for me to get to, like being like a Canadian athlete and whatnot. So anyways, I just figured like, okay, I'm going to put my name out there. So I started by like sending a direct message to the Combat Jiu-Jitsu page. But then they didn't answer. Then I was like, okay, who's running the show? It was Eddie Bravo and Victor Davila I saw. So I sent them messages on Instagram, and I didn't get an answer at the time. And then I like found like an email on Victor Davila's page for like his 10th Planet School, and I sent them an email. I never got an answer. And then I was like, okay, 10th Planet, like they're really tight. So I actually like I reached out to my friend who trains at 10th Planet. He actually helps run 10th Planet Montreal. I'm Corey Guitar. And I asked him, I was like, oh, do you think there's like any way, like, you could tell them that I'm interested in this event? So he told me he'd send Eddie a message. Eddie had told him, at the time I was a purple belt, and Eddie had told him that they were trying to stick the event just brown and black belts. Anyways, but that he would maybe keep me in mind. So it was like, okay, like he asked, but it didn't look like super promising. And then it's such a funny random story, but basically I started talking to Keith Krikorian on Instagram because he had seen that I'd fought one of his old teammates, and he messaged me about it, being like, that was a great match. And then we got to talking, and casually I mentioned like that I tried to get on the combat jiu-jitsu thing, but it wasn't going to pan out. And then he told me, he was like, oh, well, I'm like, he's Eddie's student, obviously. He's like, I'll send Eddie a message. And then the next day, Eddie finally like answered me on Instagram and was like, you want in on this event? And I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. And then I got in. So it was like, actually, I've definitely chased them down a little bit.
Okay, let me get back to this, because to me, that's a true story of persistence. It's a true story of keeping on the grind, because a lot of people would give up at any one of those steps, especially if you just send the first email. And as somebody who works in the entertainment industry, I can't tell you how many times I have gotten meetings just because somebody said, you know what, I give up, you win. Fine, I'll take the meeting with you. But for you to get the help from Keith Kokorian is nice, because he's also very much like most Canadians, super polite, super
oh my God,
wonderful.
Amazing guy, really nice.
But it's different to get him to endorse you in a jiu-jitsu context, because Keith does have a very high standard and a very good eye for jiu-jitsu. A lot of the years that we've known each other, we've went back and forth, and he's always like, oh, I think this person's really good. And, you know, he's always a champion of somebody who he's like, oh, I wish they would get this. So I think that's really dope that he made sure to not only say he would put in a good word for you, but that he actually did it. So kudos to Keith for that. So you find out that you're in. How long is the camp leading up to the actual event for you then?
So I found out actually almost exactly a month before.
Okay.
So I basically like right away, I train usually both gi and no gi. So right away I was just like, okay, pure no gi right now. And obviously with like integrating the strikes was like my first priority, because that's not something that I was used to. But I mentioned it a bit in my post-fight interview, at least like at Brazilian Top Team, it's like kind of like an old school jiu-jitsu team. So like a lot of, and then old school jiu-jitsu was kind of developed with like, you know, Vale Tudo and like fighting in mind. So like the style transfer like wasn't too harsh, I found. You know, like it definitely was overwhelming at first, but I found like with my style of jiu-jitsu that it kind of like integrated well. But then there was also like the weight cut. I had to like drop almost 17 pounds to make 125. So all that combined was definitely challenging. But at the same time, I was like, I felt like I suffered a lot during the camp, and I was like, okay, well, if I'm suffering this much during the camp, there's no way that I can go there and not win, because like, I don't know, you know, that feeling, I've sacrificed it. I'm working so hard right now. How could I go there and lose this, you know?
Absolutely. And I mean, I know as somebody who trains both that if one of the guys has, say, a gi tournament, I have to tell the no gi guys, suck it up. We all have to do this for them. What did your teammates feel like, and were they getting slapped? Because this is something that always makes me a little nervous to ask with certain teammates. Were they into that, or were they like, okay, I guess I'll help out if I can help?
Well, my teammates were actually really great, and they always have been, since I'm always competing, like, you know, gi tournament 1 month, no gi the next. They're super good to just like, even if it's like a gi class, you know, they'll take off their gi tops and they'll roll with me no gi. My teammates are the best for that, and like the slaps, you know, that transferred to the slap game as well. Although it was pretty funny, it was kind of a mixed bag. Like some people were like a little too excited to slap me. I was like, okay, maybe do we have some unresolved issues there we need to talk about? Other people felt like really awkward slapping me, and in that case, I actually just preferred having a no gi roll with them, because if you know, if you're not gonna like kind of like commit to the slapping, I find it's better just to have like a nice hard no-gi roll. So with the people who felt uncomfortable, I just like rolled regular, and then ended up being honestly just like a couple people that I felt comfortable like really like letting go and doing the full slaps with, and then everyone else I kind of just rolled no-gi with.
It's similar to what I asked the Rotolo brothers, because at a certain point I said, you guys are still 17. Like, I don't care how many times you're knee barring me or killing me. There's something about slap this underage kid that I go, I don't want to do it. Like, that's just, as bad as it may seem, it's just like, I can't beat up a kid. It just seems unnatural. It doesn't matter if they're submitting me. That seems somehow more normal. But to actually go over and be like, I have so many years of experience of slapping people, and now I'm going to take it out on a kid that was barely even born by the time I was in high school or something. You know, like, those are the things that I think about. And I know that for male training partners, you know, you don't want to be disrespectful to a female athlete.
Yeah.
You don't want to not give them a good round, but at the same point, the hard part that's for combat jiu-jitsu for everybody is you want to make sure they make it to the event. So I know it's a fine line, and that trust has to come in. So I'm glad that you have a good team, that they were helping you and they were getting you ready. Talk about the problems, though, if there were any, in terms of going from one border to another, because we are a little bit different here when you come here to the States. I almost feel like anytime we try to go to you guys right now, they're like, no, don't. We're good on Americans. But if you're going to Mexico, what was that trip like?
I mean, like, it was actually like leading up to it was I mean, it's obviously a whole ordeal when you want to travel now. And, you know, so many people were like, oh, you're going to Mexico. Like, what are you doing right now? There's so much Corona in Mexico. And it's already a lot, you know, you're trying to get ready for a competition. You have a lot of stress. People, are you even going to get into the country? Like, da-da-da. So in the end, I feel like getting into the country was actually quite easy. You just like filled out a form on the government's website, just basically saying you don't have symptoms, and then you just let them scan it at the border. So I actually was very smooth. But what was really like hard to deal with was just like everyone around me, like, you know, my parents' friends who were talking to my parents, like, are you sure you're letting her go on this trip? Da, da, da. And you know, and it's just, so I ended up started telling people like exactly what I knew everyone wanted to hear. So if someone was telling me like, oh, and while you're there, you know, you're never leaving the resort, right? I'd be like, no, I'm never stepping off the resort. And if they asked me like, oh, are they testing everyone at the event? I'd be like, yes, definitely. We're all getting tested. What do you need to hear? I will say it, because this is already like stressful enough. Like with the competition, I don't need everyone telling me all these like dire warnings, you know? Yeah.
I understand that. And as much as my heart has hurt for gym owners, it's also hurt for competitors, because you didn't do this. Like, you didn't make a pandemic happen. So just like the rest of us who are trying to navigate it, some people can work from home. Some people can do those things. You can't compete from home. So there's not really an option for you to do that. So I noticed on your social media, you were saying that Pans was the first time that you got to compete in 7 months. So that was back a few months ago. Can you describe what it was like to get back to competition? Because there's obviously a clear delineation between Pans and combat jiu-jitsu, but I'd love to hear what it felt like to actually get back to competition for that first time.
I think I'm at my best when I'm competing regularly, because I mean, like, I'm sure everyone does, but I get like really paralyzing like nerves and anxiety. So like I'll wake up in the morning of the competition, for example, I'll braid my hair because, you know, otherwise it's a mess. And like I'll just braiding my hair, my hands start to shake and I feel like I can't breathe, because it's like kind of me braiding my hair is signifying that I'm competing. Anyway, so I'll have to do like, I do like one braid and then I take like a 15-minute break where I like put my head between my knees and I sit on the edge of the bed and I, I do deep breathing. But I find when I'm competing regularly, then it feels less daunting, because it's like, okay, you did this 3 weeks ago, you did this a month ago, and it wasn't so bad. But then the more time that passes, the more you're like, oh my God, like what if you get out there and you choke? What if all the like usual stress I feel is like multiply tenfold, because I don't have that like recent experience to be like, oh no, it's okay. Like competing is okay. Like, so I think there was definitely like a buildup of like pre-competition nerves. But then that being said, when I like, it's everything leading up to the fight. And then the second you touch the other person, it's okay. And then it's the greatest thing ever. And then it's like, oh my God, I get to fight against someone like my weight class, my level. I get to test everything I've been working on. And then the fight itself is amazing. And then after that, the pans, I was like, oh my God, I like can't believe I had to wait 8 months to do that. I mean, obviously like circumstances, but it just felt like I was on such a high. I got home and I was like, I had this new motivation. I was kind of like getting a little bit depressed and I wasn't as motivated to train with no events. But then I came home from the pans and I had that fire under my ass again, which is maybe why I emailed like 20 different people to get into combat jiu-jitsu.
Clearly, that's the right move to do. And I think that it's a good way of showing what kind of positive things that you can have by just introducing that competition back into your lives. You know, we talk a lot about how people have had to get around not just anxiety at home, but with the things that they have to do in that isolation. And for a lot of people, jiu-jitsu is a release. So when you take that on top of things and you say, all right, let's reintroduce you back into the ecosystem of competing, there's a moment where you go, fun story, everybody. I actually have anxiety when I compete, and normally, it's under control. But now that I haven't competed for a while, it's coming back. I'm feeling it. So I totally understand and sympathize with that. But for the fact that you were able to make that into something positive is very, very cool. And kudos to you on that. So let's take it from the day that you get there. You had to drop 17 pounds. Was there a refueling process? Did you end up going crazy on Mexican food? Because to me, I don't cut weight. I'm not going to do that in my life. But obviously, you want this opportunity. You're going to make things happen. What happens after you cut the weight and you weigh in?
Yeah, well, it was definitely like a case of the right opportunity, because I used to fight at 125 quite regularly, but back then I was walking around at like maximum like 130, 131 on a heavy day. So it was just like a matter of 4 or 5 pounds usually. And then then I gained a bit of weight, and then I decided to commit to a higher weight class. And then when I committed to the higher weight class, I started weight training more, and I put on even more weight. So then I started walking around like anywhere between 138 to 142. And then with the quarantine also, I was doing less jujitsu, more weight training. So I was definitely on like the higher end, around 142 pounds when I started cutting. But I'm happy with myself, because I usually I only cut the weight like 2 weeks before. I just go like crazy deprivation 2 weeks before. And then this time I was like, okay, this is a really big cut compared to usual. So I did like a full month of dieting. And I actually had really good energy levels compared to usual. So I was really happy about that. But it's like, it's really hard, because like I was at the resort and it's like a whole buffet. So, you don't want to go you don't want to eat like a truck right before you have to go like fight someone. But then at the same time, it's like your body has been so deprived for so long that you can't, I just started shoveling food in. And I even had bought Reese's cups, which are I love Reese's cups so much. And I told myself, okay, you only eat these after the fight, you don't eat them before. But the next thing, I had eaten 2 packs of the Reese's cups. And then I was just praying that I didn't fuck myself over for the fight. But yeah, I feel sugar, anything, if you eat an apple or if you eat some candy at that point, I don't know, I'm not a nutritionist, so I'm going to stop giving advice, but I feel like the candy is fine at that point.
Here's some good news. I know that a lot of you are very good at competing at jiu-jitsu and somehow magically are able to drop the weight. I don't know that I would go to any of them who are doing that significant drop-offs to say, hey, you know what? I'm looking to lose a few pounds myself just for feeling good around the house. They're like, no, don't come to me. If you see anything that I eat after I do that cut, it's not good.
Well, I always tell my friends, they're always telling me oh my God, because I'll be doing the weight cut and they'll ask me what my progress is. And I'll be like, oh, I've I dropped the first 8 pounds. And then they'll be like, oh my God, you dropped 8 pounds already in 2 weeks. I wish I could lose weight like that. I'm like, I'm not losing real weight. Nothing about what I'm doing is sustainable. It's it's actually quite unhealthy. I'm gonna lose water weight. I'm gonna lose for sure. I'm gonna lose some fat, but then afterwards I'm gonna binge, because I've deprived myself when I'm trying to do a high workload and everything. So, anyways, definitely It's not a long-term solution.
It obviously worked for you that day. So we're going to go to this. Tell me about your very first match. Do you remember your first match from Combat Jiu-Jitsu on that day?
Yeah, I mean, the first one is always the one I'm the most nervous for. That's when kind of all the nerves peak. But then the second, I mean, I used to play rugby actually, and there's a thing we say in rugby, you just have to make your first tackle. So you get super nervous when you walk on the field, but the second you tackle one person or even get tackled, all of a sudden you feel fine, because it kind of just knocks it out of you. You're in the contact. There's so it's kind of like that for the fight, I feel super nervous, but the second I have connection, so I make a grip that stays, or I'm pretty sure I jumped close guard in that fight. So the second I jumped close guard, I feel 1,000% better. So I got to my close guard, and for me, close guard is, there's nowhere I'd rather be in a jiu-jitsu match. So once I got there, I was like, okay, just do what you do. This is your thing.
Okay, I noticed that too. And I wanted to get to this moment, which is I don't have a good close guard. And what I saw you do on that day in particular is I said, I think I have to ask you what the secret to a good close guard is, because it worked really, really well for you. So now that I have you on an interview, Brianna, what is the secret to a good close guard?
I just think close guard is amazing in every way, because it's just there's so many options of attacks that you can like you can use on your opponent. And then there's the idea that obviously like the only thing they can do is stand up to pass. And then on top of that though is that like you can just make your opponent suffer so much, because like I've been stuck in like someone's close guard who has like a competent close guard, and it's so tiring getting up, and like, you know, you think you're about to stand up and they break your posture, or they off balance you, or they attack you with something. You're constantly defending. So then even if like someone does manage to like open your close guard hypothetically, like they're gonna like, they paid like a tax to open it type thing. So that's kind of like why I love it so much. And then, I mean, as to like how to get good at close guard, I mean, like it's all about like controlling the posture is like kind of something like I emphasize on, right? Because if they can't stand up, obviously, then it's very difficult. There's only a few people in the world who can kind of successfully open a close guard from the knees. And then if they do stand up with a broken posture, then you have like a whole slurry of other attacks that you can unleash on them, let's say. But yeah, so I would just say controlling the posture and also just constantly attacking, because you have like so many different attacks that you can use. So if you're constantly attacking, then they can just never pass, and at one point like something gives.
Okay, I mean, I still don't believe you. It's a mystery to me, because you just made it look so effortless when I was watching it. And you know, a lot of people have different strategies for combat jiu-jitsu, but yours was one of the first that utilized it in a way that didn't necessarily hinge on, say, a rubber guard or some other traditional forms that neutralize the strikes. Yours was straight up like, no, my close guard is pretty good. And you know what? I'm going to force some submissions from here. And I had such a high appreciation. My co-host of Verbal Tap, Kevin Phillips, was in awe of what you were doing, and he wanted me to pass that on to you, because we do a little bit of a toast at the end of the year. And, you know, we're always making our notes as to who gets our notices, who says, oh, that's a great match, or this is a great match. And Kevin was literally making his list and then saw your performances and was like, yeah, okay, no, she's good. She's ruining my whole list now. And I just love the fact that when we got to do our toasts, you were included in that. And a large part of that is due to your performances that you were putting on over at Combat Jiu-Jitsu, and you made it pretty exciting. So let's go over to the second match. What happens in the second match in your recollection?
So I believe that Pearl pulled guard, which I thought surprised me a little. I thought she was going to try to like wrestle and play on top. And I thought maybe, I don't know if like she saw my first match and didn't want to be in my guard, or she just wanted to work her guard. So I was definitely a little surprised that she pulled. But I actually, in Nogi especially, like I do love playing top. I think in Nogi I either want to be bottom close guard or on top. I just like to get to the head, chin picks, that kind of stuff, and put pressure. And then so I managed to get my chin pick, and then I dropped down for the guillotine. And then I think from the guillotine I managed to close the guard, but I knew that I didn't have, like I was in tight under the neck, but I found for the guillotine, like if I don't have the head properly folded, once if I pull into the guillotine, and the head's not already folded, I have a hard time making the adjustment. I'm still trying to work on that. But then what I love about sequencing those attacks together and using them to get to my close guard is that even if like she gets out of the guillotine, now I have the close guard with the posture broken, and then if I compare it to my last fight, I had trouble breaking her posture. So had I gone into the close guard with her posture already broken, maybe I would have had an easier time in the last fight. The last fight, the difficulties I faced were because she managed to maintain posture. But with Pearl, by getting to the close guard with the guillotine, then her posture's already broken, and that's like my favorite place to work. So I just feel really confident if I can if that's where I'm starting the fight, you know. And it was pretty early in the fight that I got there, so I just decided to keep going.
That's pretty great. What are you doing in between matches? Are you a person who's still studying? Do you go into your own space? What is happening in your kind of world as the rest of the tournament is unfolding?
I definitely don't sit down. I always see people kind of go sit and relax. And I'm I can't even fathom it. I'm way too hyped up. I'm also scared. I'm what if I sit down and then that makes me tired? So even though I kind of waste energy, I guess, in a sense, by pacing back and forth stressfully, which is what I do, I just can't imagine sitting and relaxing. There's too much. So I basically just pace back and forth until they tell me to go. And I try to just keep myself pumped. So if I just won my last fight, Usually like right after I'm feeling like really good. I'm like, okay, I'm winning this whole thing. Like I feel really good today. And then the more time, it's kind of like with competing in general, the more time that passes between the match, the more I start to like doubt myself a little. So I just kind of try to pace back and forth and try to like keep that like that high you get when you just win a match. I'm trying to like just keep that in my system and bring that into the finals. Like, okay, like you're the best one here. Like you got this, you know?
Okay. I mean, I think I kind of relate to that in the sense that if I see people just, existing and not doing certain things, I always wonder, how do you make that work for you? Like, I'm a person that studies other people and watches other matches. So on top of, everything that could be going on, I'd be the person who's just at the very least, even if I'm standing up or sitting down, would just be watching and going, well, what do they do? And how does that work? So I think it makes sense when I hear somebody be like, nope, cannot sit down. I've got to keep moving. I got to keep that energy, because I go, oh, yeah, that makes sense to me too. But to do absolutely little is very confusing to me.
Yeah, even like watching other people, sometimes like I don't like doing that, because like let's say I watch the match before, like right before mine, and the guy jumps close guard, and then the other one absolutely fucks him up in top close guard. Like I see that, I'm not thinking to myself like, that doesn't make me feel good about my close guard. I'm like, oh wait, does close guard work? Is close guard bullshit? So I don't want to watch someone else's match and then see anything that's gonna somehow make me doubt my game. And obviously that like doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. It's like two different people playing a position, but that's kind of what goes through my head. So that's why I don't look at anyone else's matches.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you have to know what works for you and what doesn't work necessarily for other people, because I'm such a huge proponent of, listen, tell me what kind of person you compete as, because it may not be the same as somebody else who competes. Don't play their game. Sure. There are some guys who go, I don't look at footage. I don't do that sort of a thing. And I go, cool. Someone on your team should, because I don't want to ruin your process. But if, say, you have a coach who will do that footage watching, it doesn't disrupt your process when they see something that maybe is like a hit. So I tend to be like a very hang back kind of a person until I hear somebody like the alarm sets off, and I'm like, hold on, just gonna throw this out there. You don't have to watch it, or you know what? You're somebody who doesn't need to watch tape. You compete better like this. Or there are some guys that I go, you have to watch tape. You are that person. It's a different stylistic approach. I was just curious because, again, you guys work so fast in these matches that by the time they got to the guys, it ruined this perfect run of, man, you guys were flying through this event. That event probably would have been 45 minutes altogether if they didn't take a break. So, it was so fast paced that by the time you probably get a break before that finals, you've got a good 20 minutes. And that's probably the first 20 minutes that you've really had to kind of sit in that. So now that I know you're somebody who likes to stand up and pace around, what's going through your mind right before you go into the finals?
I just kind of just try to like, I don't want to overthink, right? So I actually just kind of try to like empty my mind, and I just try to feel good. I actually like, so I don't overthink. I actually do something really lame. I just like find one line that like motivates me, and I just repeat it again and again. And this is gonna sound so cheesy and so lame, but it's actually what I do is like, I think of like everyone who's like, for example, who's helped me like prepare for the event, who like sends me those messages like that I got like, a couple hours before the event being like, we're watching, da da da. And I just think of all of them, and I just think like, oh, okay, like do it for them. So I'll just say it again and again, like do it for them, do it for them, do it for them. And then that way it like twofold, like makes me think of all the people I love and all the people who like I have great training with. And like, it reminds me that, I love what I do and I love the people that I'm surrounded by. And then it also just blocks out all my negative thinking, because I'm just repeating these like 5 words again and again. That being said, I know this sounds like super cheesy.
Well, hold on. Okay. I kind of get that too. And let me just be honest with people. First of all, you won, so they can suck it. Second of all, I remembered I used to compete in speech and debate, and we would have these very big end of the year competition things that we'd be going to, our national tournaments, if you would. And they'd cut you off at a certain point from memorizing and performing and getting ready for the national tournaments, your big rounds, these big moments. And then they'd bring you into a room, and then everybody would say like really uplifting things. It was kind of like cry before nationals kind of a thing. And you'd look at these people because you're just so like ready to perform that people are just bringing out the nicest things out of you. They're like, I just always wanted to say, I really admired this and that you did this, and that you changed my life. And you'd look at them and be like, don't do this to me now. I'm in a zone. You can't break me right now because I'm just trying to win. And they'd be like, I just want to, I got so much love for you. And it's like, oh, no, shut up. I don't need this. So I understand that.
So good. It hits so good.
It's always, because it's like, we always would laugh and we'd always put money on who the person would be that would actually break. Because you'd always look around and you're like, didn't matter who you were, you're probably going to break. But there's always one person that you go, that guy's not going to break until the very last comment. And most of the people, you see the one little tear coming down, and then you always laugh because it's never anything that's super gushy. That's just like, you changed my life. It's always somebody being like, and then one day you gave me lunch. And they're like,
yes, so true.
And you're like, lunch did it to you? That's what it was? You guys had a good day at Chili's and now that's happening to you? Jesus. So I get it. I've been there. And I got to be honest with you. What it sounds like you're doing is you are taking a collective we going into that final round. You realize it's not you. It's a group of people who have your back, who are going into a very tough round, which could be overwhelming if you felt like you were there by yourself. So a lot of the times I've seen people transfer that mentality going into a final and knowing like, I have so many people who have my back. I not only have to do it for them, but I am prepared. So it makes sense. And clearly it worked. So let's talk about that fight. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, sorry, now I lost my train of thought. Yeah, screw it. Sorry, I totally forgot what
I was just going to say, as we go into that final round, do you mind describing what then transpires from the jiu-jitsu context in that final round for us?
Yeah, for sure. So the last fight I think was definitely like my most challenging. And it was the first time that I kind of like experienced what like an effective like strike was basically, like, because I mean during obviously the people I was sparring with leading up to this, like no one was hitting me as like hard as they could. So, and Liz had like, she was like excellent. She maintained her posture in the close guard. Basically, I think we ended up going to the ground because of the get down rule. So we were standing for more than a minute. And according to combat jiu-jitsu, if you're standing up for more than a minute with no takedowns, they flip a coin. She won the coin to us, put me in in butterflies with double unders. And then I got to the close guard from there. However, she was super good at keeping a good posture. And she started like, I guess, palm striking me. And it was kind of like my first time getting hit for real, like just in general in life. So that's always like, it's a good learning experience. I think everyone needs to get hit really hard once. And I just remember like my vision, like when she hit me really hard at one point, my vision kind of just like went white. And then I like opened my eyes and I was like, oh, that was weird. Like my head kind of feels a little heavy, like what's going on? And then I was like, oh, I guess I just got hit, because I wouldn't like necessarily see her face because I was like focusing on my own things. I was like, oh, I got to break her posture. But then all of a sudden I would just like go white and I was like, oh. And then at one point I actually kind of pictured like as if you're playing a video game and like you have like the life bar, and it starts like going down. And then I started thinking to myself like, oh, I don't have much experience with striking. I was like, I wonder like how many of these like shots like a person can like eat before like they start to like not function as well. So I kind of was like picturing this bar every time she would hit me and it would like kind of jolt me like that. I would just picture my bar going down and like the manette, sorry, it's the French word, I don't remember the word in English, the controller, it would it vibrates, like that's kind of how I felt. And then at one point I was like, okay, I even opened the close guard because I just like panicked and I was like, okay, like I just keep getting hit here. I need to change something. And I kind of pushed her away from me and then thought to myself, like, wait a second. I've watched some UFC fights. Shit does not get better in half guard. So then I think I panicked and like managed to pull her back into the close guard from the half guard. And then I was like, okay, you need to like find a way to end this. So I just like was like, okay, remember, like, with my coach, we did work on like to defend striking, always like pummeling back into the head to break the posture. So I was like, okay, like, let's go, like, do this and as best as you can. And then I finally managed to kind of cut an angle on her. And then I was staying on the side. And then from there, I usually either go for the arm lock if I feel like I have it. But actually, I think one of the reasons I have a lot of success with the arm lock is that I don't ever go for it, or I try not to, unless I'm like 99% sure I'll finish it. Because if you like fail an arm lock from close guard, a lot of times you can be in like a really bad position. So if I don't feel like I have the arm lock, I'll always just go for the back instead. But anyway, so I was kind of like chilling on the side, and I was trying to decide if I should go for her back or go for the arm. And then at one point, she kind of posted her arm out, and I was like, okay, it's go time. Like I'm gotta jump on this arm. So I put my leg over the head, and then I mean it was like a very brutal arm lock. At one point I was like extending, it was like fully extended, and I kind of like I do like the check marks. She wasn't tapping, right? So I was kind of thinking to myself like, oh, what am I missing here? So I kind of went back to like white belt day one. I was like, okay, I have like control of the wrist. I'm pinching my thighs. I have like my hips behind it. I have the elbow, and I was like, okay, everything's in. I don't know what else I could change. And then we just kind of just kept rolling with it. And eventually I felt like a little like disconnection of the arm, and then she tapped after that.
I mean, again, yeah, super impressive, super really cool techniques. And, it was so fun to watch from our side because we were in awe that we just thought, oh, it's over. Like, we usually get used to way more event. We're so much used to, especially for a final, when people are so tired, they'll drag it out for another 10, 20 minutes, you kind of sit there. I felt like we all got situated with like a drink in hand. We're just kind of like, we're done. Okay, thanks, Brianna. That's going to conclude the show, I guess. Well, all right. So obviously that's pretty cool. You got some prize money. What is the first thing that you do with the prize money?
I didn't do much. What I did was I went to the grocery store, and like I really like to cook. And obviously I haven't been cooking like as like the type of food I've been wanting to eat when I was cutting weight. So I just went to the grocery store and I just bought like myself every ingredient where I'm like, oh, that's not on special, or like that's not a great price, And I just bought myself every ingredient I could possibly want to cook with. And I ate really well for a couple of weeks.
Hey, you know what? And listen, I have to be very honest with you. As somebody who, if I got a bunch of money from a competition, I'm pretty sure food would be high up there. But you do the smart thing and you actually cook your own food. I would probably go to one of those really nice restaurants, probably take my wife there, and then be like, how much did we spend on this? That would have been the equivalent of like 10 of the meals that you just purchased at the supermarket.
Listen,
even in
when
the
the
most
restaurant's
expensive
open, then we can talk. But right now, there's no restaurant I can go to. I can
fair.
order Uber Eats. That's about it.
That is fair. And I you know what? You bring up a good point here. Here in LA, they just opened up outdoor dining again a little bit. So even then, I'm still kind of like telling people, I'm like, listen, I don't think people get this idea about quarantine, which is I don't want to go to a restaurant. I want to go to my gym. I want to go and train regularly. So that is like a way higher premium. And the people are like, oh, cool, you want to go out after that? No. That's it. That's really all I want to do. So when people have been like, I know a lot of people have been sad. They just posted that Coachella is not going to happen again. And, I love going to concerts and music, but they're like, man, no more Coachella. And I was like, shut up, dude. Like, I don't care.
I know, you're like priorities, people.
Right, like priorities, guys. Like Monday through Friday training every single day. That would be cool to have that. I want to ask this because obviously that was cool. Did you get any cool notes? Or I guess I should rephrase that. What is the coolest note that you got? Because these things are seen by a lot of people. So that could be in person, maybe say from Eddie or Vic, especially Vic, considering you kind of proved you were right to come through on this. Or did you get a nice message that really resonated with you from, say, your social media?
Sorry about that. I think I lost connection just for a second there.
I think you did. And I was just asking, did you get a good note in person or online from somebody in regards to the win?
You mean like a shout out, like a good job type thing?
Or it's just like sometimes people get really weird messages. We've learned over the years that so many people...
Yeah, I got those.
Well, so many people see these events. They're on a fight pass, which is viewed by hundreds of thousands, if not millions. So I'm sure you're getting a lot more inbox mail than usual. Can you tell me a few of those memorable notes that you ended up getting after you won?
I got like a lot of nice messages, and like I think the ones that honestly touched me more, the most, sorry, were from like just kind of like random people from like, I don't know, like a state in the States like that I've never visited, or a country in Europe that I've never been to, and like I don't know, there's like it's such a distance between me and this person. And then they just messaged me being like, oh, I love the way that you did this in your matches. This was amazing. And I think those ones kind of touched me. I was like, wow, this is so wild that like someone from Germany is sending me a message saying like that they watched me fight and that they thought I did a good job. And I tried to answer everyone's messages, but then it's funny that you said weird messages, because I definitely got a few of those. So like people who were just like nice, I'd answer all of them. And then some people were nice, but like, I don't know, there's like a little bit of creepiness to it, you know, like commenting on like, I don't know, like, anyways, you can imagine. And then I was like, okay, I mean, this is kind of nice, but also like, I don't want to give you any wrong ideas here. And then there was messages that were like flat out like, send me pictures of your feet and stuff like that. So those ones definitely didn't get an answer. Sorry guys, these feet are not for sale.
Okay, I think I would like to try and get not to the bottom of this, because I don't really want to know. But I don't know how we can stop this, because I know that Instagram has those report these people and all that sort of stuff. But it feels like every time you report one of these guys who's like, hey, I need to see your feet, it feels like they grow in tenfold. And it's not just the ladies. The dudes get it too. I just know that the ladies give it far more than the dudes do. So it's kind of one of those weird things where you go, oh man, I can't wait to get this strap so that I can have my life changed. And what's that feet pics? Damn it. That's not what I want. So obviously that's a very weird sort of a thing. I'm going to ask this because you did mention you have all those memories of all those people going into your final. What was the best message you got from one of those people? Or, because I'm pretty sure you did, especially if they appeared in the like pre-montage before a final, I can almost guarantee you those are the people who sent you messages. Do you have one in particular from those people? Did they make it from the montage to the self-congratulatory text after?
Definitely everyone who was in the montage sent me a message after. It just made me so happy. I was like, oh my God, they were watching, and especially like knowing they were watching live and that like I didn't let them down. The one actually I was like, it's funny, the one I was most stressed about was I work part-time at a restaurant, and all my friends who work there were all like, oh, we're gonna get the UFC fight pass just to watch you and this and that. But these are people like, they're not part of the fight community, so I feel like people part of like the fight community, like if you lose, they're like, okay, well you went out there and like that's like huge, and like they kind of support you no matter what. But then people who don't fight, like maybe they don't understand that like, losing happens and whatnot. So I was just so stressed to like let them down, or up to them for the first time that they watch me fight, to them think like, oh shit, she kind of sucks, eh? So I was, and then I didn't even know if they ended up watching, because I told them, I was like, don't tell me you guys are watching. Like, I don't want to know. I don't know that you guys are out there. And then they all sent me messages after being like, oh my God, we watched everything together. You killed it. And like those messages just made me like so happy, because I was like, okay, one, now I'm happy that they watched because I did do well. And it's just so funny because leading up to it, I was like, don't you dare watch. I don't want you guys to see anything.
It's a very weird thing. We refer to them as civilians, so people outside of the line of duty of jiu-jitsu. And, it's sort of the way whenever I tell people I train, they go, man, I'm scared of you. And I was like, please just, no, I'm not going to attack any of you. That's not how this works. And they always do that, like, but if there is something that goes down, you go, yeah, we'll be fine. It's just,
oh my God,
just chill out.
Like, guys at parties, it's the absolute worst thing. Like, I don't think I've ever gone to a party since starting doing jiu-jitsu where like some guy doesn't come up to me and start talking to me about like what would happen if I fought him. And I just don't understand it. I was like, I never asked for this commentary. I have like no interest in like playing out this imaginary scenario of if we fought. And the one that they always go is like, well, I feel like if I just got in one good punch, though, there's not much you could do. And I'm like, get out of here. And then I'll be like, well, do you know how to strike? Because like, have you done any striking? And they'll be like, yeah, I've done striking, because this is something about men. I mean, now I'm going on a rant, but like every man wants to be a fighter. Like no man wants to feel like he can't fight, So like if they've done like one boxing class, it's like, yeah, I've boxed, or like if they like watch UFC sometimes, it's like, no, I understand the fight game. But you would never watch like a hockey or football game and be like, oh, I could do what like Tom Brady does. But like men, when they watch fights, they think that they could do better than the fighter. Anyways, and I feel like that same kind of attitude like transfers to parties where they just like feel the need to have this conversation with me, but it's like not something I ever even like mentioned or brought up, you know?
I totally understand that. And with that in mind, that is part of the reason why when people are like, oh, I see that you do striking, you know, and I'll be like, no, opposite of that. I've trained striking. I don't think I can do this. In fact, the more I do it, the more I'm assured I am not a fighter. I'm just a guy who's losing some weight and am learning something. That is a valuable skill. Because I tell people, I'm like, I think the most beneficial thing that you can do as a host for this line of work in grappling and jiu-jitsu is to try it, because then you recognize what it is the athlete has to do that makes it so impressive. And you come away with a better respect, and there's a easier way to kind of understand their worlds. I feel like the people who do the opposite of that and who speak from that place of, I don't know, I mean, you're about $40. If I hit you with one good strike, you'll be done. And it's like, no, that's not how this works, dude. Like, you're not going to John Wick a person at a party. That's not how this all goes down. Like, you know what I mean? The aliens aren't coming today, and if they are going to come, I'm pretty sure they're not going to fight you, dude. So we're good here. Having said that, though, you mentioned a little bit about your past. This is your first time on the show, so I always like to do a little bit of origin story. As a result of that, I suppose I should start with the leading question, which is, what came first, rugby or jiu-jitsu?
So definitely rugby. I've been playing rugby since I was like 10 or 11. And I played like in high school, I played for like a club as a kid in the summer. And then after I played for like university and also like for the same club in like the adult league. And I absolutely love rugby. And I think there's actually like a lot of parallels between rugby and jiu-jitsu. Even actually it's really cool, but like, because in rugby there's 15s rugby, which is like the classic traditional rugby, where you have 15 players aside. And then you have like sevens rugby, which is the rugby that's actually in the Olympics now. And it's like sevens rugby is like kind of like a lot faster paced version of the game, because you have a lot less players on the field. So like a lot more action can happen. And there's more like, you know, there'll be like faster breaks in the line and stuff. And then 15s rugby is like a bit more strategic, because you really have to like claw your way up the field, because there's like such a strong defensive line. And I think the two kind of compare a lot to like no-gi being the sevens rugby and 15s being, gi jiu-jitsu. And then even beyond that, like the community, it's kind of the same vibe where it's like a small community. And like, if you travel somewhere and you meet like a fellow rugby player, like you can go have a beer with him, like just based off the fact that you both play rugby, there's like that camaraderie. So I think like when I started doing jiu-jitsu, which I started, by the way, because my dad is, he's actually a black belt now. At the time he was a brown belt. I got involved through him. I kept saying I would want to try, and then finally I did. But then jiu-jitsu was just like, it was just so amazing. I've never done anything like it. And as much as I love rugby, I just felt like with jiu-jitsu, it was like practice, game, competition, whatever it is. I was always excited to be there. Whereas rugby, I'd be like, okay, I'd be pumped for the games, but then sometimes it's like, oh, I don't really want to go to practice tonight or whatever. Versus jiu-jitsu, it's like every time I go, I'm like excited to be on the mat. It's like maybe like one time in 100, I'm not like excited to go train, you know? So I think that's kind of what's made me switch over. Now I don't do rugby anymore. I don't want to like get injured. I don't want to miss out on jiu-jitsu because I have a rugby injury. But I definitely like love rugby, and I can't say enough good things about it. It's just that jiu-jitsu is like mind-blowing.
I totally get that, and I understand. There's always a moment when, say, a new sport becomes the new love. When I grew up, I was like, baseball's it. I love baseball. And then all of a sudden soccer comes and I go, sorry, baseball, you're out of the picture. And all these years later, when I do find jiu-jitsu, to me, I just think like, I don't know what I would do without it. Like you just start thinking that way. So I'm curious, because you had this love and you were clearly a passionate rugby player. What was the appeal? Like, why this over that?
It's hard to say. I think it's not less about like the faults of rugby and more just about like everything that's great about jiu-jitsu. I mean, like anyone who does jiu-jitsu like preaches, you know, we're very culty. But it's just like everything about it. I feel like, you know, it's constantly like challenging your mind. I love the idea that like I can go in there and like try to solve a puzzle. You know, I love the idea that it's not just like reaction based. Okay, so I'm the best at like, having a certain reaction or like doing a certain movement. Like obviously like the best do this at like a reaction like level, like they problem solve at a reaction based level. But like it's the idea that I can also be like, I can be physically strong and be good because I'm physically strong and agile and mobile, but I can also like use my mind and solve problems, and if I like apply myself properly to this art, like I will get better even if I'm not the strongest, or even if I'm not the most like flexible or whatnot. Like everyone can solve problems based on their physical ability, basically. And I just like think that's like amazing, and it makes it that it's addictive. And if I encounter a problem I can't solve in class, well, I'm like itching to get back so that I can put myself in that exact same situation and do better, do better, do better. I just think it's like, it's addictive and great. And so it has nothing to do with like what I didn't like about rugby, and everything to do about what I love about jiu-jitsu.
Which is a great segue. I'm glad that you kind of phrase it like that, because I didn't think at a certain point you're like, rugby sucks. It sounds clearly like you're ambassador of that. What I do like to ask people is, do you remember the exact moment you fell in love with jiu-jitsu? Because it's one thing to do it as a hobbyist, but to actually make it something that becomes a career, something that you are passionate enough to lose 17 pounds in a certain amount of time for, and something that you're willing to get slapped in the face to go do something because it calms your anxiety. Okay, sure. I'd love to know, do you have a kind of memory that sticks out to you that says, this is a moment where I started to fall in love with this sport?
I can't think of like a specific moment, but I do know that like I just felt so happy. Like I felt happy all the time. And I think it was like, this is gonna sound so silly, but like just something as simple as like, if I like worked all day and then my options were like to go home and like relax in front of a movie or go to jujitsu class, like jujitsu was like so fun that like it was like a clear choice to me. But whereas like any other activity, like when you have like a long hard day, like all I wanted to do is like go home and relax. But then jujitsu was like, actually I'd rather go do jujitsu than like go have a drink, go like watch Netflix, go do whatever. It was like, even like on a purely like pleasure basis, like so nothing to do with like, okay, I'm a competitor, I need to be training, but just on a purely like enjoyment level, that jujitsu was always like my first option. So I think that's like kind of what made me start being like, okay, well now I'm going to train more often. And then I was training more often, so then I started kind of like training a lot with the people who were like already competitors, and then I kind of started to get in with that clique. And then it's like, oh well, they're competing, and I've competed my whole life in rugby, so it's like I might as well compete, so I just threw myself into competition. And then you're kind of like in the flow of things, so you just keep going, you don't question it. And then all of a sudden it's like, well fuck, do I want to do this? Like this is what's bringing me like the most happiness in my life. So
that's dope. Look at that. All right, I can get into that, because again, it sounds like it just created a very nice urgency of something that you wanted to do at that time. So even if there wasn't a direct moment, it also sounds like you had a lifelong exposure to the sport. So when did your dad start doing it?
My dad's like one of those like OG, been doing like every kind of martial art since like the 80s kind of guy, like looks super tough and, and everything. So he's done like, he's done judo, some karate, some taekwondo. He's wrestled a lot. And then, so he basically kind of had, and he has like all these crazy stories about back in the day, like to learn to like grapple, he would just like, they would be rolling on like carpets. First of all, like that was just like, they didn't have mats, they just had carpets at their like grappling club that they like created, but like no one was like a belt or anything. And they would like just order like magazines or like DVDs, and they would like see the technique in there, and then they would just like do it on each other. But it was all, a lot of it was like maybe like a bit catch wrestling-y. Like he had a lot of like pain compliance stuff, because they wouldn't get, there was like a limit to the technique they had available to them. So they would just kind of be like, okay, well if you like make someone hurt here, like they'll move this way. A lot of stuff like that, super old school. And then finally, like Brazilian, my professor Fabio Holanda, he came to Canada and he opened up like BTT Canada. And then my dad started training with them, like finally doing kind of like an official form of grappling. But he had already been like kind of doing a lot of like grappling based martial arts for a while. Actually, that just reminds me of like a funny kind of like part of the origin story is that when I was a kid, actually, my dad used to like grapple with me, and we would just like kind of like wrestle around. And then I told him how I wanted to do grappling, and he looked like everywhere for classes for me to do grappling. And he couldn't find anything. He offered me to do wrestling, but I asked him like, "Oh, is that the thing that like you showed me how to like squeeze someone's head and stuff like that?" And one of those is like difference on the feet, whatever. And then I told him, I was like, "Okay, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that." And I saw like the weird outfit. I was like, "I don't want to do that." Anyways, and then I kind of just forgot what it was. And then he started doing jujitsu like years later. But I didn't know that jujitsu was like the same as grappling. So I never knew it was like the thing that I wanted to do when I was a kid. I thought it was just like this like weird karate thing, like my dad wears this lame gi. I never really watched him do it. And then I found out, I was like, oh, okay, wait, like that thing I wanted to do when I was like 7 years old is actually jujitsu. Anyway, it's like big story.
No, that's so great because I don't know that a lot of people have that experience in their wheelhouses. Like my dad didn't do a sport that I like said, Dad, I think I'm going to try that now. If anything, my dad's still trying to get me to golf, and I still say like, no, qualify that as a sport more. What I do know though, is to hear you explain that. It means it has importance within your family. It means that it clearly is something that bonds you and your dad. So I'm curious what he thought of when you did say, hey, I did find jiu-jitsu back again. So what was his reaction when you said, no, I'm in?
I mean, he was super psyched. Like my dad, and like I think it just shows throughout like my jiu-jitsu career, if you'll have it. It's just like anything, like if I ever like need anything that's related to a competition, like sometimes I won't even directly ask him for something, but I'll just like casually mention like, oh, it's too bad, I would have loved to have like this type of tape for my competition or whatever, but I don't like say at all meaning for him to get it. And like then I'll find out that he's like gone to like 3 different stores searching for this tape, being like, she needs this tape, but like he's never like we don't do like this emotional stuff in my house. So like he's never come up to me and be like, I'm so happy you're doing this and like I'm so proud of you. But he'll do all these things like that, like go to 3 different stores to find me this tape that I didn't even like really need. Or he'll like, he'll give me, if I can't get to training, I miss my bus, like he'll drive, like he'll come home from work just to like give me a lift, but I don't even know he's doing that. And he just shows up and he's like, get in the car, you're going to training. Just like stuff like that shows that he's obviously like really happy.
That's pretty cool. And again, now that I know what it does mean to your family, what did it feel like to bring your dad like a championship and say like, well, I think it's going pretty good right now,
I mean, I think he was over the moon. And like, again, like it'll never be like this like huge outburst of emotion, but like it'll just be small things. Like I brought home the belt and he was like, oh, let's take a picture, everyone. Let's take a picture with the belt, Stuff like that. So and then he'll share it on his Facebook and he'll always post like when I am fighting. That's actually kind of like in like when the fights are live. That's probably when he shows the most excitement because he'll start posting like live updates on his Facebook. And you can see like there'll be like 1,000 exclamation mark. Brianna moves on to the next round.
It is a typical parent move. I totally get it. Yeah. I totally understand it. But now, and you don't have to say yes or no. I'm just going to kind of read the expression on your face after I put it out there. But now knowing what I know, I'm going to guess that if your dad does make the montage, and I'm pretty sure he does, he's probably like a quick flash scene that just kind of goes, yeah, all right. Like in the montage of all these people saying super nice things and then cut to your dad being like, yeah, okay, you got it. Good.
So the most I get, like most of the time I'll get like the thumbs up emoji. And then like this time, I got I think the gorilla, the muscle, and the like, oh fuck, I think maybe like the explosion. But like that was like wow, you really did good this time. usually thumbs up.
Again, love it. I think that's amazing, and kudos to your dad for introducing this because those are those weird building blocks that you never know. will come back to be that important to you. So, just being active and taking an interest in your child and doing something that's fun is just kind of like play wrestling, does something where that later on in life, when they are reintroduced to that, they go, oh, I've done this before and I do remember really liking it. So now I know for sure this is what I want to do. So I think that's so cool that it kind of makes its appearance back in a little bit later in your life.
Yeah, no, I definitely like appreciate everything that my dad has done, and just whatever sport. Even when I was playing rugby, or even if I was playing soccer, which like is for pussies according to him, he'd still watch a bunch of YouTube videos and like come show me like highlights of soccer and stuff. So I feel like all these things like definitely had an impact on me throughout my life and kind of kept me like in that competitive spirit in like a good way, So.
Well, kudos to him again. Please pass that on from us here on the show. And I'm sure many people who are very entertained by what you did over at Combat Jiu-Jitsu. Let's start looking forward. What is coming up next for you? I'd love to know, because again, after you do one of these competitions, there has to be a little bit of I want to see her compete again. I want to see her do more. So for you, you're somebody who's open to that competition. What would you like to see happen next for you?
The situation is not great right now. Basically, we have to, like, in Canada, when you come home, you have to quarantine, which I know is like the same for a lot of other countries. That was the case like recently, but they like also take it pretty seriously, and they'll like send people to your house to like check that you're quarantining. So like I have to like miss work when I come home and whatnot. And then so already that like wasn't the best situation. And then just recently they updated the policy, and actually when you come home, so you have to get a test in the States. Let's say I were to travel to the United States, you have to get a test there, and then if it's negative, you're allowed to board the plane. Once you arrive at the Canadian airport, now you have to take another test, and then while you wait for the results of that test, you have to go to like a government-run hotel, and they keep you there for 3 days while you wait for the result of the test. And then if the result is positive, you have to stay for the rest of 14 days at like a government facility. And if it's negative, then you can go finish your quarantine at home, but you have people who like come in and check on you. And then to cover the cost of this whole hotel stay, if you traveled non-essentially, you have to pay the government $2,000 to cover for like all the testing and the hotel stay. So it's kind of like a shit show right now. But I still like, whatever the circumstances are, like I always try to make it happen, because I want to keep moving. I don't want to stop. I feel like once I stop and give into it, like then it's going to be like, oh, I'm not going to compete for 2 years or something. With that being said, it has like, I think if I travel and it's like for work, so if it's like a professional event, like similar to combat jiu-jitsu, then I think it's like better when you come home or something. But the point is, I'm going to make sure that the next event I do is something that is like I don't want to travel for like an IBJF right now, where like, I'm paying to compete, and then I have to pay all this money because it's not even work, it's not even considered like professional or anything. So yeah, it's just like a whole situation, but it's what it is. I'm debating, honestly, just going to the States. Like if I get like an opportunity to compete that's like worth it, to go to the States and then actually just to like find a place to train and stay there for a couple months or something. That seems like, and then hopefully get get a few competitions in one shot to make it like worth the shit show coming home. But yeah.
I think that's probably actually the best of all recourses, because not only would it expand your base to kind of get out, but you get a little time to train outside of your wheelhouse. You kind of get to travel maybe a little bit, but I just know that going to train and quarantine for one specific event, you hit it right on the head with the IBJJF, and no disrespect to them in that way, but it's just not fair for you to take that much time out for something that's just not going to pay you like a professional. And in my opinion, you win like a professional, you should be rewarded like a professional. So you just won something that was really difficult to do. I'd love to see you on, Submission Underground. I'd love to see you on all of these different events that they have that I know it's all bubbling under. I think there's a part of the community that's just kind of waiting to start getting events back up, because everybody's just, they really want to see jiu-jitsu come back in a big way. Yeah,
no, definitely. I mean, you said it perfectly. Like I I think I'm going to focus more on those types of events right now. And I'm kind of just waiting for like the right one. If I get contacted by like something like that, like Submission Underground, then I think that's just going to be like my sign from the universe. I'm going to go do that event and then just find, I have like friends that I've met through competition based in different areas of the States. So hopefully I'll just go contact one of them and see if I can train with them for a couple months and then maybe do more competitions while I'm there. So the goal.
And I don't know any of the people in Canada, but listen, if you're somebody of importance in Canada and you need to give this person here a visa or one of those green cards or whatever it is you need to give her, let her come here for a few weeks and then just, she's fine. She'll be great. Listen, we here in the States would be very, very lucky to have somebody of her jiu-jitsu caliber come and not only, I don't know, do a couple seminars and teach people or get the opportunity to compete because, I mean, if you just get a little peek of what you see over at Combat Jiu-Jitsu and they cycle in the different weight categories and different, male, female events, it might be a while before they bring one of those back and she gets to defend her title. So I'm just saying, let's just give more opportunities to those who really, really want to work hard for it. This is one of the first times you'll hear it said here on the show, but let her take one of our jobs. So I'm okay with that. I'm going to sign off as an American on you coming to take some of our jobs.
Perfect.
Brianna, I appreciate your time. Before I always get people on out of here, I always like to give them an opportunity to shout out all the people who helped them get to where they were, all the people who helped them get ready for that last competition, or any of your sponsors that you want to thank for help making all of your competition possible. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor. The floor now goes to you.
Okay, so I'm not going to name names for people that helped me get here because then what happens is that you forget to say one person's name and then you look like an asshole. So I'm just going to say to all my teammates, I love you guys so much and I appreciate everything you do to help me get ready for competitions. Honestly, like if you're listening to this, you know who you are. So no names, but I will shout out my sponsor, Maeda Canada. They're super great. Jeff, who runs it, is like amazing. He's always like super supportive of all of my competitions, I guess. And he also runs out of Fighters Market Canada, which I think is like a really great option for Canadians because a lot of times when you're ordering from like brands from the United States, it takes forever to ship and like you possibly pay duties. And also like our dollar is like in the crap hole right now. So it ends up being like really expensive with the conversion. So I think like Fighters Market Canada, like support a local business and it's like all your favorite brands like Maeda, Kings, everything. So check them out if you're in Canada. Yeah. That's it.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody shout out a form of shipment ever before, but it really bodes.
It's such a game changer.
But here's the thing. I sometimes look when we do giveaways on our show, and one of the hard parts is when you see somebody who wins in a different country, all I can think of is, I don't know how to ship to there. I've never shipped anything to there. So now I got to figure that out. So,
okay. So real quick, you know what happens in Canada? Just so you can understand why I mentioned the shipping is that often if we order from you guys, they won't tell you when you order. I mean, it's not the fault of the retailer, but what happens is like as it goes through customs, and it's not all items. That's why it like surprises you, But your item will get to you, and there's a guy holding it, and he tells you that he can only give you your stuff if you pay him like an extra fee for like but like sometimes you've ordered and you don't know what the fee will be. There's like no way to predict it. It just happens once in a while. And like so let's say you order like $100 gi. Sometimes they'll say like give me another $70. Otherwise, like I just walk away with this gi. Like you don't get the gi. So
anyway, what kind of hostage situation is No, 100% shop local. You know what? With that in mind, I'm just going to start naming people whenever we have Canadian fans that I go, you know what? You're just going to get something from them now. So that's the case. Well, first of all, I don't know what kind of laws you guys have, but I'm pretty sure that's a form of extortion. This is how I think Sylvester Stallone movies started in like the 80s, where they'd be like, he took his gi and he won't give it back. Now he's getting ultimate revenge. So that's the kind of stuff that thank you for exposing me to, because I did not know that ahead of time. Well, listen, no. It's better that I know. I would rather be knowledgeable as a host than somebody who just goes, what are these Canadians bitching about? Like, seriously, they should just get their stuff together. Brianna, I just wanted to say, congratulations again on your big win. we were also happy for you the minute you got on and you were doing your post-fight interview. You know, I try to always reach out to people, whether they win, and sometimes if they even don't win, if they do a great performance. But I'm always so excited to talk to those people who look like they have a true spark of joy when they are talking about their win. And I thought that was something that you had. So I have been very much looking forward to this interview. I am pretty sure, given the way that you compete, we'll probably do it again at some point. But I am so happy you took the time, and I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun talking to you guys. This was really great. So I do hope I keep winning and that we can do this again.
I'm pretty sure even if something doesn't happen on the jiu-jitsu scale, we'll still find a reason to chat with you. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to close this up, and then I'm going to say bye to you off air. But thank you so much, Brianna, for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, Brianna Ste-Marie coming in and giving us a great interview. All right, let's do this real quick. Let's go ahead and close this up. I want to say a few things. First and foremost, thank you so much for tuning in. We have a lot of stuff coming up. I have a lot of people I've reached out to. We're going to do a lot more stuff. We will return this Saturday with another Fight Companion. We'll also have a new episode of Verbal Tap coming up sometime in the next day or so. I've got, Royal Rumble to watch, which, by the way, congratulations to those of you who are winning that. We'll have more information on that a little bit later as you just keep it posted on our page. That's all I got for you today. It has been a great day for grappling. My name's Rafa Esparza. We'll see you back on the mats. Eventually.